Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have something absolutely amazing to check out. We've got ourselves a brand new Ichthyovenator model, and this is by a sculptor that I have actually featured here on the channel in the past. He has now changed his name rather than using his real name. He's going to move forward using Sauria Models as his name, and again, I'm probably going to butcher it, so this is the last time I'll have to do this. This is sculpted by Dinosaur, and I apologize to him if I mispronounced his name because it's definitely a tough one to say. But moving forward, we just get to call them Sauria Models because that is the name he is going to go by from now on. And as you can see, this is a gorgeous model. Like, wow, is this thing ever incredible. When you look at this, like, honestly, when I pulled this out of the box, it just absolutely blew my mind. It is far and away the nicest model that I have seen so far of this species and will absolutely be a very hard one to beat out. And what's really cool about this is this model not only, of course, was sculpted by him, it was printed by him and actually painted by him. So it's my very first chance to take a look at his paintwork as well, which you can now purchase his models in 3 different ways. You can purchase them through CG Trader, where you can actually purchase the files and then print them out and stuff at home. You can purchase them directly from him through Instagram, where you can purchase either just the model kit or the fully, finished, built and painted model, which you see right here. So without further ado, let's jump to a closer look and we'll check it out from there. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Ichthyovenator, you can see he's chosen to go with a closed mouth version here, which I think looks really cool. Definitely helps to show off the beauty, I think, of the dinosaur, whereas most times you see people always trying to show off the ferocious side of these creatures. It's nice to see somebody taking more of a real life sort of approach to it. And as you can see, on top of the really nice looking head sculpt we have here, we've got some gorgeous paint apps, as we've got some nice mixtures of whites and blues. And when you see the blues, you can see there are various different tones of blues, and I love how he's had like this darker blue kind of stripe up into the lighter blue. The way his paintwork looks is so unbelievably nicely done, and he's definitely done a great job of helping to show off the gorgeous side of this dinosaur. You can also see that the skin texture and scale detail looks really nice. Some areas it's a little hard to see how nice because, again, we've got the whites here in the face that are kind of a little bit bright, shining the detail away with the light kind of hitting it, but I can assure you it's super nicely detailed. And some areas like there in the lower jaw, you can really get a nice look and feel for how good the scale detail and everything looks. You can also see, of course, we've got that hook in the jaw right there where you can see a few of the teeth kind of exposed. You can see a few more teeth here right on the front as well moving around. They are as well, of course, painted. As you move back, you can see the eye is basically just a dark tone there. Looks like maybe a very dark blue or a dark gray, but it also has a nice gloss coat, so you can see how it's shining right there with the light hitting it, which looks nice. You've got the crest up here on the top of the head. The dinosaur has its head turned toward its left and also in a downward position, and you can see that reflected nicely when it comes to all of the skin wrinkles and folds moving back into the neck. As you move back, you also start to see some osteoderms and stuff pick up. You can see a pretty cool kind of like a dark yellowish tone here, but as you lead down, it starts to break up into a lighter yellowish tone, moving further down into the neck of the dinosaur. And you can also see we've got some reddish tones down here in the throat region as well as up here on the back of the neck. And I love the way that he's painted this area here. As the blue kind of leads up, you start to see it just kind of break up, and a few more scales out here end up with that bluish tone leading out before transitioning to that reddish tone. And another thing that he's done that I really quite like, if you look up here, is he's allowed some of the lighter tones to sort of creep through those red scales, and that helps to really nicely highlight the skin texture, give it a very realistic look, and just generally show you again how highly detailed the model is. You can see that we've got larger scales, kind of like scoot-like scales, moving over the top of the head. And then as we continue to move down into the side of the neck, the detailing continues to get, smaller and finer, leading all the way down into the yellowish tones where the scales are really quite small. You can also see the ears sculpted out and again highlighted with a darker tone. We've also got like some of the wrinkles wrinkles and creases over here, but not nearly as much as you see on the first side, of course, because the dinosaur has its head turned in that direction. So you're definitely going to see a whole lot more wrinkling and creasing over there compared to over here. You can also see a little bulkiness to the throat right here, again, due to the positioning of the dinosaur. You see more of that light tone showing up as you move down here into the reddish tones of the throat as well. And again, how gorgeous does that scale detail look? This is definitely a beautiful sculpt. And just like we saw on the opposing side, as we move down, those darker yellowish tones start to break up and transition to a yellowish, like a lighter yellowish tone moving back. And as you continue to move down, you start to see all sorts of variation of color leading back into the body as we start to pick up some very, very dark grayish tones. But along those dark grayish tones, you also have some whites that sort of outline it, but then the dark grays also kind of like break up into like some speckling moving along as well, which is really neat. And as you continue to move back, you see the yellow kind of stripe back just like right to here, and then it's gone, and now we are overtaken with the darker tones of color, but still showing up some of the whites here and there as we move down. You can also see another area of a light yellow moving along. So again, tons of variation of color have been added to this, giving even the paintwork a very highly detailed look. You can also see some light grays as you move up here, basically into like the armpit area. You can see more osteoderms, as well as again some absolutely gorgeous scale detail, very fine scale detail moving along. As you move down into the arms, I really like the positioning of the arms. The arms are held out kind of away from the body, almost making it look like the Ichthyovenator is currently in the process of putting on some sort of a display, whether it be a defensive display to kind of scare something away. I'm not too sure, but it's definitely putting on a display of some kind. And you can see we've got more of those dark yellowish tones down here on the underside of the chest of the dinosaur. You can also see leading out we have some more of the white, and then we transition to the dark grays, but we also have that light tone, kind of like a light wash that's been applied. And you can see the undersides of the hands look really good, again, as far as the detail goes, and again, the undersides of the fingers as well. And if you look at it from up above, you can see we continue to have that light tone there moving along the hands, again out into the fingers. You've got more of that light tone basically running along the sides of the fingers, but you have the darker tone moving along the top of the fingers as well, which looks really cool. You've also got genuinely sharp looking nails for our Ichthyovenator, painted with a dark grayish tone, I would say, fairly similar to the tone of color used in that area of the hand, but maybe a little bit darker. As you move up, of course, you're going to see the same coloration and everything on this side as far as what we had just seen on the first side. You see a little bit of creasing back here behind the arm, of course, again due to the positioning of the arm. You can make out the muscle definition in the arm as well without it being overly defined like we often see on dinosaur models. As you move up into the back and you start to really see those darker tones take over, you can definitely appreciate the skin texture, I think, a little more, because you can really see how impressive it is and just how many scales are sculpted out here moving along the back of the Ichthyovenator. It is honestly incredible. It must have taken him so long to sculpt this out. Moving down into the leg, you can see this leg is taking a step forward. We've got the muscle definition again nicely defined without being overly defined. We've got a few osteoderms moving along the back of the thigh right there. As you move down, you can see the knee, big calf muscle right there for sure. And then as we lead down into the foot sculpt, we've got some more really cool colors showing up down here. As you see, you've got some yellowish tones highlighting the scoots moving down the front of the foot down into the toes. And the toes spread pretty far apart right there, which looks really cool. You've also got the nails again painted with that same grayish tone, as well as the dew claws, and you can see those yellows even follow down along the dew claws. And then of course, as you move back up into the legs, we've got that very, very dark grayish tone. We can also see that the white follows along the underbelly of the dinosaur, basically down into the groin, and then ending as we end up here toward the tail, where the darker gray is basically taking over the dinosaur. And as you lead out, you've got a very impressive, very cool paddle-like tail, like we often see on species like this nowadays. Again, the entire tail is basically overtaken with that very dark grayish look. You can see we've got some more of those osteoderms moving out here into the tail, but also again some absolutely incredible skin texture and scale detail, where again, if you get nice and close and just really let the light hit it, you can, I think, truly appreciate how unbelievably highly detailed this is. There's also a nice curve to the tail. If you look at it from up above, you see it lead out and then curve toward the dinosaur's right side. If you take a look again from the opposing side, you're not going to see too much of anything too different on this side because the tail isn't curved drastically enough to really cause a massive difference. You can see some creasing right there back behind the thigh. And again, you'll notice that the leg on this side is trailing just a little bit in comparison to what we see on the opposing side. Again, the same sculpt and paint as you lead down into those really nice scoots on the feet, and then again back up into the stomach. So, wow, that is absolutely far and away my new favorite Ichthyovenator. We've also got a base for the dinosaur to stand on, just basically a nice small earthy area where we've got the footprints, and you can see some darker tones applied to the footprints, lighter tones applied to the earthy area. Kind of makes it look like maybe it's near a beach or something somewhere. Not too far, like I don't think it's sand or anything, but it just sort of gives me the feeling of being somewhere near a beach. But still really nicely sculpted, nice textures and everything added, nice paintwork as well. Nothing overly flashy, but absolutely serves its purpose perfectly. And then you've also got a nest here, and as you can see, the nest also has that same sort of texturing, same colors as what we saw in the earthy area for the base, but you can also see the eggs are sculpted out very nicely, painted with a white, and what's cool is the eggs are actually removable, and as you can see, all 3 eggs come out. They look really cool, and you can also now get a look at what you see there for the inside of the nest and the imprints there where the eggs were sitting and everything. So, of course, an absolutely awesome addition to this unbelievable model. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that the Ichthyovenator cannot stand on its own, as you can see. I mean, it kind of can if you lean it back on its tail, but it can't stand freely with the tail off the ground. But once you apply it to this base here, and you press the feet down into the footprints, if I can get it in the right spot. There we go. The Ichthyovenator then stands very nicely on the base. I'm probably going to glue mine on once I'm done with the review, just because I love having that feeling of safety with my dinosaurs, once they're actually glued onto the base. But as you can see, it does stand very nicely on the base regardless. But as far as the size goes, this is in 1/20th scale, so it's definitely quite nicely sized for a length from the snout to the tail here. You were looking at about 15 inches or around 38 centimeters. And then for a height to the top of the neck, right around 6.5 inches, maybe a little over or just shy of around 17 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A human being next to our Ichthyovenator from Sauria Models. And you can see at 1/20th scale, it definitely has a very impressive size to it and is far larger than every other figure we have here next to it. And then just a few randoms here with a Mattel Velociraptor and Dilophosaurus, again obviously much smaller. We've also got the Schleich Diabloceratops and Collect A Deluxe Dimetrodon. Now, as far as Ichthyovenator figures go, there are only 2 that I can think of off the top of my head, one of which is the Collect A version, which would be so tiny compared to this version. The other is the Mattel version, but since I'm currently doing a whole lot of work down here in my basement, I don't have access to my Mattel version because I'm in the process of getting a new furnace and everything down here, so a lot of my stuff is currently in storage. But I did bring in a Mattel Baryonyx, which is pretty much the exact same size as the Ichthyovenator, to show you that obviously the Ichthyovenator here from Sauria Models is quite a bit larger than the Mattel Baryonyx, and of course then the Mattel Ichthyovenator would be. Not so much in body mass, I think they're very similar there, but it's just a lot longer because we have much more proportionate tail length on this version from Sauria Models. I think the coolest model that I could probably think of to bring in here next to this as far as something similar would be the Dino Hazard Irritator, which you can see as well is quite a bit smaller. And you're going to continue to see the same trend basically as you move through here with the PNSO Suchomimus next to our Ichthyovenator from Sauria Models. Again, the Suchomimus is a whole lot smaller. And then for one final comparison, we also have the GR Toys / Howlong Good Spinosaurus next to the Sauria Models Ichthyovenator, which you can see these are kind of similar in size, with the Spinosaurus being just a little bit bigger. So this 1/20th scale Sauria Models Ichthyovenator is by by far one of the most beautiful dinosaur models I have ever seen, and that goes as far as honestly every aspect to it. Like, I just love the realism on this one. I love how it's portrayed, just showing it so beautifully and so majestically rather than looking kind of ferocious or something like that, like we often see. Like, he really took a very realistic approach to this model, and that's something that he honestly does a lot when it comes to his work. And I actually have quite a few other models here that I'm super excited to get up here as far as reviews go on the channel very soon. But I love everything about this. Like, the sculpt is so nicely done, the pose is also nicely done, again showing off some sort of a display currently, which I really quite like as well. And again, the sculpt itself is very impressive when it comes to the fine detail and capturing every ounce of movement as well as scale, detail, and musculature. Everything is very nicely displayed on this model without it being shrink wrapped or anything like that, which I also really love. The paintwork on this as well is expertly applied. It's extremely appealing to look at, probably one of the coolest color schemes I've seen for a dinosaur like this, so definitely a huge fan of the route that he's gone here. I believe his inspiration was of a penguin for this color scheme, and it works so nicely on the dinosaur. And of course, it's perfectly and very naturally applied with many variations of color. And what's really cool is you can now, like I said earlier in the review, get your models if you choose to order some from him. You can get them actually printed and painted by him if you'd like to go that route, which I very highly suggest doing so because his paintwork is fantastic. But without a doubt, far and away the best Ichthyovenator that I have ever seen and may ever see. So if you are interested in grabbing one, I will include links in the description to, of course, the CG Trader site that I was mentioning earlier, where you can purchase different files of his models there to print for yourself, or you can contact him on Instagram and inquire further there about purchasing the actual printed out version of his model, and of course the painted version if you choose to go that route as well. And if you do not have Instagram, you can contact me and I can contact him for you, or at the very least I can get his email for you, which I actually will try to get a hold of to include in the description, so you can just do it yourself technically if you want. But either way, definitely pick this up if you are interested, and of course like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.